Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, that's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. And this program, Front and Center, can also be heard on the following shortwave frequencies. That's 9.475 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.820 MHz. Join us for another edition of Front and Center with your host, Jerome Toledo. The International Criminal Court, or ICC, has issued a warrant of arrest against former President Rodrigo Duterte for crimes against humanity in relation to the drug war that took place during his administration. Before this, former President Duterte has received reports that an arrest warrant was issued against him by the court. Shortly after his return to the Philippines from series of engagement with Filipino community in Hong Kong, on March 11, Tuesday, he was arrested at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport and was flown out of the country several hours later to bring him to the Netherlands, particularly the ICC at The Hague. And that turn of events created an obvious divide between the government and the Dutertes, which the Duterte allies calls for his release as they argue that ICC no longer holds influence, as the Philippines withdrew its membership in 2018 and ratified a year after. Even President Marcos assured that the Philippine government will not cooperate with that international tribunal. However, the government, through Presidential Communications Office, said Tuesday night that the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte was in compliance with the Philippines' commitment to the International Criminal Police Organization, or Interpol. Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte's initial appearance is scheduled to take place on Friday, March 14, 2025. So how is this going to affect the state of politics in the Philippines? Joining me now is a political analyst, Mr. Ronald Llamas. Mr. Ronald Llamas, the political analyst, thank you so much for joining us in the program Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
My pleasure, Jerome.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to ask, so first, how this developments in the politics turn of events will affect the state of our politics, Mr. Ronald Llamas?
Well, first of all, this is about accountability. This is about justice. This has been several years in the making. As early as 2016 and 2017, the prosecutor of the ICC has already warned us that they were watching. They were observing the escalating numbers of extrajudicial killings. When it didn't stop, it didn't go down, they started the preliminary examination in 2017 motu proprio, which meant on their own. And then communication evidences starting to reach the ICC from families of the victims of extrajudicial killings to Senator Trillanes and Attorney Sabio, etc., etc. So the preliminary examination meant that our country is now being investigated regarding crimes against humanity. It is country-specific. After a few years, it started the preliminary investigation. Preliminary investigation meant that it is now going to be person-specific. Who are responsible? And it was clear from the very start, it was the president himself. And the architect of Tokhang who were implicated in these crimes against humanity, Senator Bato. So what happened right now is the end of the preliminary investigation, the release of the international warrant, which was given to the Interpol for implementation. And that's what we saw. So in one sense, as the Catholic Bishops' Conference statement stated, this is about accountability, a long overdue accountability. This is not just a dynamics between the Marcos dynasty and the Duterte dynasty. It is more importantly between the Dutertes and the families of the victims. Let us not forget that. Even if there is a political dynamics in this ICC warrant of arrest, it is the culmination of a search for justice by the families of the victims. And it is wrong what the Dutertes are saying, that this is about an imperialist attack on the Dutertes. No, the three women, that's what are judges from Romania, from Benin, and from Mexico. These are not imperialist countries. These are countries from the south, similar to the Philippines, and all women, all also expert in human rights, and they were the ones who issued.
Mr. Ronald?
They are saying that there was an absence of the rule of law. Of course not. No, all the legalities were observed.
And you mentioned, Mr. Ronald, that the three judges that will spearhead, I think it's a pre-trial of the case, are from non-imperialist country, right?
Yes, there are four different judges to hear this case. First are the three judges who issued the warrant.
Okay.
Second, what is happening today, in the next few days, is the what you call the like an arraignment, no, to brief the ex-president about his crimes, alleged crimes, and the rules of the International Criminal Court. No, this is like an arraignment. This is also the phase where they will try to observe if the case against Duterte has merits to proceed to the trial proper. So they are now in this stage. The Digong can also request for not a bail, but for temporary release, internment, where he can be near the ICC, but probably house arrest or hospital arrest. No, the judges, which are different from the judges who issue the warrant, will now determine whether he is a flight risk, so they can approve or reject his request for internment outside of the detention center of the ICC. And he will also, and the judges will also take a look whether the charges are enough to proceed to the formal trial. So that is what is happening today.
Okay.
Different judges. The trial proper, when it starts, will also have different judges.
Okay, so it's gonna be like,
if the conviction happen, or then the ex-president can make an appeal to an appeals court of the ICC, which again will have different judges. So you will have 4 different sets of judges for this trial.
Okay. I think based on what you said, Mr. Ronald, so it's gonna be a lengthy process, a trial process for former President Duterte.
Yes and no. Usually, these trials take about several years. But I think the ICC want this to be more faster, because this is the first Asian to be charged in the ICC, and a former president at that. So this is a landmark case even for the ICC. So they want, and the whole world is watching. So they would want to have a speedy trial. I think that is one of the reasons why they issued a warrant only for ex-President Digong and not the possible 3 to 5 others like Senator Bato, General Albayalde, etc. Because if it is a bit large, then the trial will be longer. If it is only one, then it can be faster. No? But
Okay.
I think the warrant for Bato will arrive or will come later this year.
Okay, I see. But of course, but I can't help it but to mention this, Mr. Ronald, because yeah, although there are people that are or that were aggravated by the campaign of former President Duterte, but there's some people, particularly his supporters, saying that uh, he only do that, or he only did that kind of campaign to protect the majority of Filipinos, and to prevent them from falling into a trap called drug addiction. So, what can you say about that?
Well, first of all, he promised that by killing 100,000 people, he will solve the drug problem. The drug problem is still here. He said he will solve it in 6 months. After 6 years, the drug, according to Las Cañas, Cotabato, etc., the head and members of the Davao Death Squad, they killed drug lords, pushers, addicts, in order to replace them with their own drug lords. That was also the result of the Quadcom hearing in Congress. That is why not only in cases may be filed against other allies, other family members of the Duterte who will not be charged in the ICC regarding this not only killings but involvement with drug syndicates and pogo syndicates. And third, most of those killed in their thousands were suspected users. How do you solve the drug problem by killing the victims of the drug problem? As Senator Ping Lacson said, it's very wrong to try to solve the drug problem by focusing on the demand. They should have focused on the supply. Bureau of Customs permitting drugs to enter the country. Bureau of Bucor, where drug is being produced inside. No, members of the police, ninja cops, who support the drug trade. The demand side should be the focus, not the supply side, not the demand side, not the users. Users are victims themselves. And as can be seen in most countries, you don't solve the problem of drugs by killing or imprisoning the victims. You rehabilitate them. They themselves are victims of the drug problem. So in any and all aspects of what Duterte did was all wrong. No? The framework, the strategy, no, and the violation of human rights, the collapse of the rule of law. So later on, volumes will be written about how Duterte mismanaged, no, the drug campaign.
I see.
And that's being gentle about the problem. No? This is really a total reversal of what they planned or what they were planning to solve. They themselves, according to the Quadcom, according to the testimonies of heads of the Davao Death Squad, were just changing the drug lords with their own drug lords. That is why the Quadcom said that Duterte is the biggest drug lord of all.
I see. And you mentioned earlier, Mr. Ronald Llamas, about the architect of the drug war campaign, former PNP chief, now Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. And at the same time, we'd like to mention this into this discussion, particularly the midterm elections. So yeah, survey companies releases its rankings of senatorial votes for 2025 midterm elections. And for February, it seems a few Duterte allies, including De La Rosa, tops the survey. Now, they are rushing to their former president's side because the former president was arrested by the ICC. So, how do you think the public opinion will change in the next survey period given these political developments? And not to
Well,
mention that Senator Bongo, Senator De La Rosa tops the survey last
well,
February.
first of all, they topped the surveys like Bongo before, no, before the arrest of Duterte. Now will be different because now they will be supporting not a theoretical a person charged with crimes against humanity, but an actual person charged with the actual crimes against humanity. This will be different. If they support that person, then they themselves will be supporting the crime against humanity. So this will be a different time. No? So if this will be linked to them, then I'm sure their ratings will begin to go down. I'm still predicting that Bato will lose this election. It will be a struggle for Bongo because Bongo was identified with the malasakit centers of then President Digong. No? And until the arrest, he was very silent in defending Digong or Sara Duterte. That is why he was not identified. But I think more and more they will be identified with this failed drug war, these extrajudicial killings, these crimes against humanity, this massive corruption, this betrayal of our national sovereignty in favor of the Chinese. I think in the next 2 months, this will take its toll on these two candidates of the Duterte as well as their families campaigning in Davao. And also with Vice President Sara Duterte facing an impeachment case in the Senate.
I see. Okay, so yeah, although the police force showed violence against the president, so what do you think will happen to this?
Well, first of all, the uproar came from their own base. In other sections of the society, there was joy, no? Especially in the Catholic Church, especially in civil society, especially with the victims of the families of the drug war. So we have to understand that they still have a support, even if it's dramatically going down. They still have significant support, and the uproar came from that section. Second, from what I saw, it was the police who were violently hit, like that policeman who was hit by the daughter and the wife of Duterte. I didn't see any violence used against them. Even when Duterte flight to Den Haag was delayed because he didn't want to be taken into custody, they respected the former president by talking, negotiating with them until eventually he decided to voluntarily go to Villamor Air Base and ride the plane going to Den Haag. And third, their claim that there was no warrant, it was proven that there was a warrant issued by the ICC, signed by these three women judges from Romania, from Benin, and from Mexico. So indeed, and then their claim that they got a TRO from the Supreme Court was all false. There was no TRO. On the other hand, the Supreme Court said there is no basis for the TRO. They rejected the appeal for a TRO. And yet you can see Lambino, one of the senatorial candidates, saying that they got a TRO and they're rushing to get it to prevent the arrest of the president. All that was disinformation. No? So, and what the police did was a part of the decision of the International Criminal Court and the Interpol Red Notice that immediately, ASAP, forthwith, they have to bring the criminal, the alleged criminal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm down to my last question, Mr. Ronald.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would like to ask your thoughts on this because recently China cautions the International Criminal Court on politicization after the arrest of former President Duterte. So, and also I found out that Duterte a few times during his administration resented the United States, and also some Western allies over meddling of our internal affairs. And also, China supported Duterte presidency in terms of economic policies, infrastructure developments, etc. And in contrast, Marcos' administration leans to the Western side due to the aggression of the Chinese Navy and Maritime Bureau in the West Philippine Sea. So I would like to ask your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it was a huge mistake for China to attack the ICC regarding the arrest of Duterte. It only manifested that Duterte was and is a puppet of China. It was negative for Duterte to be supported by China and for the ICC to be attacked by China regarding the arrest. The second, the issue in the South China Sea, the West Philippine Sea, is not about just the Philippines. There are three issues involved. The West Philippine Sea, where we won the case, a historic win in the UNCLOS, where China is a member, where China should obey, where they are not obeying up to now. Second, Taipei, Taiwan, the issue of invasion, the possible invasion of Taiwan, which is a threat of China. And third, the freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, which is now one of the most, if not the most important trade waterways in the world, where $3 to $4 trillion of trade passes through every year. The concern of the US, Europe, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, India, even Africa, is the freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. Yes, they support our claims in the West Philippine Sea, but this is a global concern that China doesn't own the South China Sea. It is not about us supporting the US. It's about the US supporting our victory in UNCLOS. Not only the US, but the entire world. So we have to understand that. This is not just only about the US and China. This is about the South China Sea, where the world has the right to traverse, where the world has the right to organize their trade, and which China wants to own. So this is not just about the US and China. And this is not just about the Philippines and China. This is global.
I see. As much as we'd like to extend the discussion regarding the case of former President Rodrigo Duterte to the ICC, but we don't have much time already. Anyway, thank you so much, Mr. Ronald Llamas, for joining us in the program. And I hope to have you again in the next episodes of our program.
Of course, Jerome, anytime. You're most welcome. Thank you to all your listeners.
Okay. And that was the political analyst, Mr. Ronald Llamas. And that concludes this edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Together with Radyo Pilipinas World Service production team and technical personnel Milo Janela, Hiro Lacero, and Henry Doblas, this is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay, love the Philippines.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.